Program, B.S. English. Course, 19th Century English Novel. Topic, Property and Economics in Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Prepared by Dr. Shahryar Khan. Question. Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice is not just a romantic fantasy. It is also a commentary upon socio-economic plight of women in the early 19th century England. Comment. Or. Discuss the theme of money and property in Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Introduction. In the 19th century rural England, a woman who belonged to landed class did not have much choice in matters of economics. If she wanted to keep her status of a woman of landed gentry, she could not do any paid job. Women, in those times, had just two options: inherit money or marry it. There was no third choice open to them. This is the reason that money and economic issues are an integral part of the narratives of Jane Austen's novels. Each of her 6 novels pose questions about the economics of her characters. The plot of Pride and Prejudice also revolves around the principles of property and social and economic activity of the late 18th century England. Raymond Williams thinks that in the world of Jane Austen, money is the language through which status is negotiated. W. H. Auden also has the same opinion and says that Jane Austen reveals the economic basis of society. Reading Pride and Prejudice from the economic perspective tells us that it is not just a romantic story with a happy ending. It is also a commentary on the matters of property and money, especially from the point of view of women. Point 1. In 18th and 19th century Britain, land was the source of political power, social status, and a permanent income. According to the British property law of that time, eldest male child inherits the property of the family. The purpose of having one heir was to save the estate from being divided. In the absence of a male heir, the estate would be distributed amongst the daughters equally. In this way, the family estate would be divided and eventually come to an end, and the family would lose its power and status in the society. In order to avoid this situation, some families would go for another option that was called strict settlement or entails. According to this law, the family estate can't be distributed or sold by any heir. The heir would be a tenant while he is alive, i.e., he can just use its income. If this male heir has a son, the estate would be transferred to him. If he has daughters, the estate would not go to them. Instead, it would be transferred to the closest male relative. In Pride and Prejudice, the Longbourn estate of Mr. Bennet is under this law of entails. He inherited this estate as a male heir, but he cannot sell it. As he has 5 daughters and no son, after his death, his estate would go to his closest male relative, Mr. Collins. Point 2. From the very beginning of the narrative, we come to know that the situation of Bennet women is desperate. As mentioned, Mr. Bennet's estate is entailed. After his death, the estate would go to Mr. Collins. Mrs. Bennet and the daughters would have to leave their home. Mrs. Bennet is not a very sharp-minded woman and does not know much about legal matters. She cannot swallow this fact that after the death of her husband, Mr. Collins would become the owner of Longbourn. She says to her husband, "I cannot bear to hear that mentioned. Pray do not talk of that odious man. I do think it is the hardest thing in the world, that your estate should be entailed away from your own children." As mentioned earlier, the women of landed gentry could not do any job, as it meant losing their social status. The Bennet sisters cannot inherit any property and wealth. Their only option is to marry someone with money. Chances of getting the proposal of a wealthy man were very slim. This is the reason behind the anxiety of Mrs. Bennet. Austen says about her that the business of her life was to get her daughters married. When her youngest daughter Lydia elopes, Mrs. Bennet is not much concerned about the scandal. She is happy that eventually she gets married to Wickham at the young age of 16. Though Mrs. Bennet calls Mr. Collins odious, when he proposes to Elizabeth, she is so delighted and presses her daughter to marry him. She is aware of this fact that Elizabeth does not like him, but she sees this as an opportunity to keep Longbourn in the family. Through this dilemma of Bennet family, we come to know the plight of women in the society of that time. Point 3. Most of the readers of Pride and Prejudice like and enjoy Mr. Bennet. In his arguments with his wife, the readers always take his side. This is because the novel is told through the point of view of Elizabeth and she loves her father. But if we look at his character from a neutral perspective, he is very much responsible for the grim future of his children. He has an income of £2,000 per annum, and he has saved nothing. In that time, it was no small amount. He could have saved or invested for the future of his daughters. Instead, his plan was that, eventually, he would have a son who would inherit the Longbourn estate. When first Mr. Bennet had married, economy was held to be entirely useless. They had always intended to have a son. This son was to join in cutting off the entail, as soon as he should be of age, and the widow and younger children would by that means be provided for. This has not happened. Now, they have 5 daughters. The youngest is 15 years of age. They have no considerable money for their dowries too. Mrs. Bennet accuses her husband of neglecting his duty to provide for his daughters. I do think it is the hardest thing in the world, that your estate should be entailed away from your own children, and I am sure if I had been you, I should have tried long ago to do something or other about it. It is really doubtful whether she would have done something about it or not. But she is right that her husband is responsible for this situation. Robert Hume comments that Mr. Bennet is not only callously feckless with regard to his womenfolk, but enormously and complacently selfish. Point 4. When Mr. Collins proposes Elizabeth, his proposal is rejected. Mrs. Bennet is infuriated, but Elizabeth and Mr. Bennet are on the same page. Mr. Bennet tells his daughter, "An unhappy alternative is before you, Elizabeth. From this day you must be a stranger to one of your parents. Your mother will never see you again if you do not marry Mr. Collins, and I will never see you again if you do." The remark is witty and amusing, and as readers take the side of Elizabeth, most of them agree that Elizabeth should not accept Mr. Collins' proposal. The question is, given the economic situation of the family, is it the practical approach? It shows that Mr. Bennet is not a practical man at all. Later, when Charlotte Lucas accepts Mr. Collins' proposal, everybody is shocked. Elizabeth cannot believe it, engaged to Mr. Collins. My dear Charlotte, impossible. She thinks that Charlotte has accepted this marriage just because of material benefit. The match was a humiliation, and she could not have supposed it possible that Charlotte would sacrifice every better feeling to worldly advantage. Looking at it from another perspective, we must admit that Charlotte Lucas is a very smart girl. She knows that it is very hard to get a good proposal. Mr. Collins, sooner or later, would inherit the Longbourn estate. She would have a secure and comfortable future. In the given scenario, Charlotte made the right choice. Charlotte serves as a foil to impractical Elizabeth Bennet. Conclusion. To conclude, we can say that Pride and Prejudice is not just a romantic fantasy. It is a protest against the socio-economic position of women in the 19th century England. Elizabeth is saved at the end and the novel ends happily, but how many real Elizabeths might have faced this situation? They would not have got the same happy ending. Moreover, in the novel too, apart from Elizabeth and Jane, the future of other sisters is uncertain. Judith Newton has commented on the status of women in the early 19th century England in these words: "The legal reality of the entail on Longbourn serves as the novel's ticking clock. It highlights the extreme vulnerability of women in a patriarchal property system where a lack of a male heir creates an immediate economic crisis.